All right, it is 3 p.m. Eastern time, so we are going to get started. So welcome. It's really great to see all your faces, and I am coming to you from Dexter, Michigan, where it is actually a beautiful day out. It is about 60 degrees and sunny, and after seems like forever of gray and cold, it's awesome to be there. So I actually had the thought of trying to set this up outside, but I knew it wouldn't work very well. So here we are in my office at my house. So thank you for tuning in. I am Matt Emhoff. I am a spiritual and life coach and the director of Deeper Ministry. And what we do is train you in the art of living free. And as we said on Tuesday, living free looks a little bit different than it did 3 or 4 weeks ago. And one of the things that we want to do is learn how to live free in our emotions. We don't want our emotions to become another thing that's kind of holding us back or making us feel imprisoned. And so that's what we're doing. We're learning to manage our emotions during a crisis. And this is part two. And it is the healthy emotional flow that we're going to be talking about today. So if you tuned in last time, we started with a breathing exercise, and we're going to do that again today, just to kind of get us tuned in and our hearts and minds in a good place. So if you would join me, we're going to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Do that again. Deep breath in, deep breath out. Now, this time when we breathe in, we're going to breathe in everything good that you can think of that you may need. Love, joy, peace, hope, healing, and restoration, just general goodness that you can think of that we need. Ready? So we're going to breathe in all that goodness and breathe out. Okay. And then this time when we breathe out, we're going to breathe out everything negative, all confusion, all distraction, anything that feels like it's pulling us overwhelmed, the feeling of being stuck, whatever those things are, we're just going to let that out. So breathe in the good, breathe out the negative. One more time. I'm going to breathe in the good, breathe out the negative. All right, thank you. Thank you for indulging me. That is a really helpful practice, really simple. We're breathing all the time. And so we can become aware of that and help our body understand that we are safe, that we are okay. Our body understands that we're okay by breathing slower. We say, oh, it's time to rest instead of ready to go do something or attack or run away or that kind of thing. So during this crisis, at any time, you need to just take a little break, just do some breathing. And I'll tell you what, we started a breathing exercise with my daughter, Evelyn, who's 3. We started when she was 1.5 years old. She's amazing. She's strong-willed and can be super intense. And I love her. But she would get so intense, she would start to hyperventilate. And so if a 3-year-old can do it, then you can do it. And all we do with her is just help her take some deep breaths in it, and it regulates her body. She realizes, oh, I am safe. I can control my body, which is really beautiful, really neat to see. And so let that just be an encouragement. So last time on Tuesday, we had part 1, which was really talking about awareness, cultivating awareness in this time and what all that looks like to live out of empathy, to live out of vulnerability, to share a stormy first draft with somebody, to let out all that intense emotion through that way, and really fighting against things like scarcity or diminishment and all that. So today we're going to be talking about what we call the healthy emotional flow, and it's really kind of getting to know the top 4 emotions that we all experience, which is fear, anger, sadness, and joy. And so before I get too far into this, I actually want to start with a movie clip. So I'm going to try to get fancy with Zoom. I apologize ahead of time if it doesn't work or the video lags or you can't hear it very well. I will share the clip along with this video, the recording of this video with you, so you can watch it later if it doesn't come through right now. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to see this movie clip, and it is from the movie called Inside Out. And this is a fun movie. Hopefully you can see that now. That's a fun movie that that Disney made to try to say what's on the inside of us, what's going on in our emotions. And they kind of have like the control room of each person where each emotion is working to do its best for the person, which our emotions are doing. But they each have their own personality, and in this they each have their own color. So you'll see purple, which is fear, red, the red guy is anger, blue is sadness, yellow is joy, and green is disgust. All right. So this is just a couple minute video. Let's watch. Let's see if this works.
Here, you pretend to be Joy.
Won't it be great to be back out on the ice?
Oh yeah, that sounds fantastic.
What was that? That wasn't anything like Joy.
Because I'm not Joy?
Yeah, no kidding.
Did you guys pick up on that?
Sure did.
Something's wrong.
Should we ask her?
Let's probe, but keep it subtle so she doesn't notice.
So, how was the first day of school?
She's probing us.
I'm done. You pretend to be Joy.
What? Okay.
It was fine, I guess. I don't know. Oh, very smooth. That was just like Joy.
Something is definitely going on.
She's never acted like this before. What should we do? We're gonna find out what's happening, but we'll need support. Signal the husband.
With a nice pass over to Reed, comes across that right.
Uh-oh, she's looking at us. What did she say?
What? Oh, sorry, sir. No one was listening.
Is it garbage night? We left the toilet seat up. What? What is it, woman? What?
He's making that stupid face again.
I could strangle him right now.
Signal him again.
So, Riley, how was school?
You gotta be kidding me.
For this, we gave up that Brazilian helicopter pilot?
Boo! I'll be Joy.
School was great, all right?
Riley, is everything okay?
Sir, she just rolled her eyes at us.
What is her deal? All right, make a show of force. I don't want to have to put the foot down.
No, not the foot.
Riley, I do not like this new attitude.
Oh, I'll show you attitude.
No. Stay happy!
What is your problem? Just leave me alone.
Sir, reporting high levels of sass.
Take it to DEFCON 2.
You heard that, gentlemen? DEFCON 2.
Listen, young lady, I don't know where this disrespectful attitude came from.
You want a piece of this, Pops? Come and get it!
Yeah, well...
Here it comes. Prepare the foot.
Keys to safety position. Ready to launch on your command, sir.
Just shut up!
Fire!
That's it. Go to your room. Now.
Foot is down. The foot is down.
Good job, gentlemen. That could have been a disaster.
Well, that was a disaster.
Come, fly with me, Gachinya.
All right. Well, I hope that video worked for you. And if not, again, I will share that link with you so you can see it later.
Be free, make mistakes, try things.
And let me get my video back here. Hey, there, can you hear me now? All right, thanks. Thanks for telling me, guys. I had a whole bunch of people going, yeah. Thank you. So now that you can hear me, that's just a fun way to look into our emotions and kind of give them a personality and see what they're trying to do for each person in that scene. And if you are married and have kids, you know that situation from your own perspective and what that's like. The guy's just sitting there watching sports, and the wife's trying to get their attention and all that. So so it's just a fun way to kind of tap into that. So if you can think about this as almost like a meet and greet with your emotions. And so we're kind of going to get to know each one of them and what their role is, what they're trying to tell us, and how to interact with them. And part of us is probably saying, well, why would I want to get to know my emotions? They're oftentimes connected with pain. As we said last time, every emotion is trying to honor pain, or at least reality. So why would I want to get to know them? I'm trying to push them away. I'm just trying to survive, that kind of thing. So I remember years ago, the first time somebody told me this. I have struggled with anxiety and fear a lot in my life. And I was at one of the worst points of having a lot of anxiety. And what I would try to do is get rid of the anxiety, of course. Try to figure out where that's coming from, try to fix it, try to pray against it, try to do anything I could, read Bible verses, have other people pray for me, and nothing was working. Nothing would work. And so I finally had someone who was actually a close friend and mentor. Mark Fryer was the first person to say, Matt, what if you befriended your anxiety? And then anxiety turned to anger because I was like, what are you talking about? I don't want to befriend my anxiety. Do you know what a jerk my anxiety is? How painful it is to feel that? I want to get rid of it. I want to fix it. And he was kind enough to let me rant a little bit, and we talked about it more. And it really started this process of me wondering, what would it be like to actually maybe not be close friends with anxiety, but at least understand it more, at least allow its presence instead of push it away, and wonder what is it trying to do? Why is it trying to get my attention? What is actually going on here, right? Because we have these emotions and they are powerful. There's a lot of energy inside of us. And we know this because the fear starts to come in and we start to get, whoa, this is intense. What's going on? Or anger comes up and boom, we're there. Just like the movie clip we just watched, or sadness or joy are all powerful. And so we've got this force in us that's trying to do different things. And we want to learn how to work with it instead of work against it. Another way to say it is we want to own our emotions instead of allowing our emotions to own us. And so what we're going to look at today to kind of help us with this is what I call the emotionally healthy flow worksheet. And again, I'm going to try to be fancy here and share that worksheet. Let's see if you can see this. All right, you should be seeing that. So here it is. So this is the emotionally healthy flow worksheet. And so it starts with pain. As we said last time, all emotion is trying to honor pain. And so pain comes into our life in different ways. We feel unsafe. We feel hurt, abandoned, whatever it is. And then the first thing that happens is fear jumps up and says, hey, something's going on. We're in danger somehow. And so fear is trying to tell us that. And then right away, anger jumps up after that because it says, hey, I can do something about that. Something's going on. I'll take care of that. And I'll either attack or defend or do whatever I have to do. And then eventually, after fear and anger run around like chickens with their head cut off for a while, sadness comes along and says, hey, thank you for all your work. But now it's time to let go. Now it's time to actually process through this, which we don't like to do. But it really starts to honor the pain in a different way. And then finally, when we do let go, and sadness has had its say, what it does is it makes room for joy. And so sadness is telling us we have to let go of what was or what we think should be. And joy is saying now what is, and what's beautiful, what is good, what is right. How do we now move forward in the space that is, okay? So, I didn't mute myself that time when I changed screens, so that's good, I think. All right, so imagine that your body or yourself is a big house. Think Downton Abbey, if you watch that show, or just a big mansion. And what we've done is we've hired 4 people to take care of this big mansion. And they're really good at their work. Okay, so we've hired fear, anger, sadness, and joy to help us manage our life through this world. And they're really good at their life. In fact, sometimes they're too good. They're like that friend. If anyone of you have a friend, you don't have to, say who they are or anything. But if you have that friend who's like, they're a really good friend, ton of energy, and when they're focused on something that you want done, it's amazing. But then a lot of other times they're a little much. They're just intense. They're kind of taking over things. They're speaking when they shouldn't. That's kind of what our emotions are like when we don't know how to interact with them. And so we got to learn how to set healthy boundaries and work with them instead of against them. Let them have their say, but also not let them just kind of walk all over us and that kind of thing. So you're imagining a big house. We've invited these 4 to take care of us and help us take care of this space, right? So what we're going to do is get to know these 4, what role they play and what they're trying to tell us and that kind of thing. All right. So I'm going to share this next part of this document with you. You should be able to see that now. All right. So fear. Let me introduce you to fear. And we all kind of know what fear feels like a little bit. We don't have to go too far into that emotion to remember what that feels like. And so we've all seen how fear is used negatively, right? We've all felt that in ourselves and in other people when we get stuck, when we're super intense, when we're very anxious, when we are making poor decisions because we're not very grounded, that kind of thing. Fear can be all that. But when we work with it, we know we have a choice on how to harness it, how to do well with it. Okay, so the role that fear is trying to play is what I call the tower guard. That's their role in the house, is the tower guard. So they're up high, away from everything else, of course, with a telescope or binoculars, always looking, ready to see, is there any danger coming? Because what fear is trying to tell us is you're in danger, right? So we kind of hire fear to say, hey, be on the lookout. Is anything bad coming? Is anything emotionally dangerous or any other way that's dangerous coming after us or at us? And fear will tell us, and it will tell us over and over, and it will look for every single thing that it can to find that and to look for that, right? And so we want to broaden out the definition of fear, just like we did with pain last time, because there's lots of nuances to fear. Right? Sometimes we're super intensely terrified, and sometimes we just go, oh, well, that's kind of weird. I'm not sure I like that. Sometimes we feel a little remorseful or feel maybe a little stupid or inferior. Sometimes we feel guilty or even depressed or lonely. There's a wide variety of emotions that are under the heading of fear and what fear kind of brings with it, right? And so what we want to ask is what is fear's gift to us as it's trying to tell us, hey, you're in danger, and it's really a God-given gift to show us the way. So what it gives us is this really amazing ability to survive in the world. So physically, if we're walking through the woods, which I like to do a lot, and there's a big boulder that's about to fall on me, we go, oh my gosh, jump out of the way. We didn't take a long time to think about it or try to figure out what was happening. We just jump out of the way, right? So we say, thank you, fear, for telling me to get out of the way and for shutting up the rest of my body. The chemical cocktail that goes through our body tells us, get out of the way now. Don't hang out there for too long. Or maybe a more apt analogy or picture is when we're driving down the road and somebody swerves in front of us and cuts us off. We slam on the brake real quick, right? It takes about 15 minutes for that adrenaline, that chemical cocktail that just went through our body, to calm down, right? We're super intense when that happens. That's fear that pops into our brain like that. And it's really the fight or flight response in the part of our brain that's called the amygdala. And it's really helpful to survive, to respond, to not think too long about things where we need to, right? But what also happens is when we're in emotional danger, our body reacts the same way. When we're in emotional, what fear deems as emotional danger, which is somehow I'm not okay right now. Somehow something's threatening me, which can look a lot of different ways. Our body is getting geared up to run away or fight or do something about it, right? And so we say thank you to fear for letting us know there's something wrong, that I should do something about it. But we also have all this energy coursing through our body when sometimes we're just watching the news, when sometimes we're scrolling through Facebook, where sometimes there's not a lot we can do right now that our body can do to go attack something or run away, which it's designed to do when that fight or flight jumps in, right? And so there's a lot of things that we can do as we interact with fear as we go. And we've talked about this, a few of these things last time, and I'll re-say them again just so we know them. But there's some others as well, which is we want to do the breathing exercise that we started with, right? Again, we're telling our body it's safe. In fact, if you listen to music that's about 60 beats per second, that is around the resting heart rate of a human being, right? So our heartbeat will actually try to align or beat with the beat of the music. When it's going 60 beats per second, that's telling our body to slow down, right? Meditation, it can be really helpful. Going for a walk can be really helpful. The other thing that we want to do is be careful how much fear data we're putting into our body or receiving, right? So like we said last time, you may want to limit yourself on how much news you're watching, or that news feed on your phone, or Facebook scrolling, or whatever it is that you do, because fear is going to do its job really well. So if you keep giving it information and data that something is wrong, you're in danger, which most news is about anyways, especially in this crisis. Most news is about how terrible things are all around the world. Then our fear is experiencing that as if it's happening to us right now. So take some breaks. Let it know that it's okay. We're okay right now. There are some things happening around the world, and it's not comfortable in moments. And right now, right here, we're safe. You're okay. Right? And you can do that even, you may not want to say those things out loud when there's somebody else with you that doesn't know any of this. You might look like kind of strange, but you can use those words, kind of healthy self-talk, to say, hey, you're okay, when you start feeling that fear, like the little child, right? We said last time, pain and our emotions are sometimes like a little child who's hurting, trying to honor that pain. And the more we ignore them, the more they're going to try to get our attention. And so what would you say to a little child that's in pain? Hey, it's going to be okay. I see you. I hear you. Let me give you a hug. Let me give you some love, that kind of stuff, right? And so we can tell our fear that, tell our body that. But our body responds to experience more than anything. That's why the breathing or music or many different things can help that. It kind of gets us out of the rut of going, oh, everything's fearful, everything's not well, right? So again, we thank you, fear, for your work in what you do and try to helping us see the danger. And we don't always need you to tell us that, because sometimes we're not in danger when you think we are, right? So we can work with them that way, all right? So next is anger. All right. And obviously, we've all seen how anger has been used negatively in hatred, in violence, in physical or other abuse. And obviously, we don't want any of that. But part of being healthy in our anger is getting to know it instead of pushing it down. Because all these emotions often can be like a dam. And when we dam it up, it's going to leak out and someday just come crashing down, which is why we don't want to stuff our anger when we feel resentment or frustration or all that kind of stuff. We, again, want to find healthy ways to channel it, healthy ways to work with it, instead of against it. And so the role that anger plays is as warrior. All right. And so warrior either runs out ahead to attack or stays behind to protect. Right. And what they're trying to tell us is a boundary has been broken. A boundary has been broken. So this is about injustice. This is not okay. And there's lots of different kinds of boundaries that we have, many that we don't even know we have. Boundaries like expectations or assumptions or beliefs, convictions, things like that. And often we don't know we have those boundaries until somebody or ourselves trip over them and find them and go, oh, whoops, I'm pretty upset about that. This is not something I wanted to happen, that kind of thing, right? And so as we broaden the definition of anger a little bit, there's a lot of types of anger that are under the heading of anger, like I'm hateful or selfish or angry or hostile, frustrated, jealous, irritated. In fact, one of my favorite things in coaching, and I'm giving away a secret here, so don't tell too many people, but one of my favorite things in coaching, this is a little sadistic, but I'm a coach, so I love this stuff, is when somebody is telling me that they're frustrated when I'm working with a client. They say, oh, I'm really frustrated. What I love to do is just look at them and say, oh, wow, why are you so angry? And they look at me like, what? I didn't say I was angry. But the reality is that being frustrated is under the heading of anger. And so what we do is we kind of try to smooth it out. We think, it's really not okay to be really pissed off or angry or that kind of thing, but frustrated is kind of acceptable. So we walk around saying, I'm really frustrated, or that kind of thing. But what's really going on is I'm furious underneath. It's boiling underneath, right? That's there, that's happening. And so we want to be aware of these nuances, these different levels of emotion. We can get really good at the healthy emotional vocabulary to call it out, to say, oh, I'm not just frustrated, I'm resentful. I've been hanging on to this anger for a long time. Things like that. And that can be so helpful, because then we can actually deal with what's going on. We can find how intense this is. We can find what it's pointed at, what boundary has been broken, and then how to heal that boundary. And quite frankly, boundaries is one of the big things that I do in coaching to help people understand how to live, because most of us have never been taught how to live in healthy boundaries. We all have them. But often we have not been taught how to navigate with healthy boundaries. We usually kind of live passive aggressively, beat around the bush, or wait until it gets really intense and then explode in anger and frustration, which is also unhealthy, right? So we say thank you to anger, because the gift that anger gives us is healthy boundary. It defends us. It tells us, hey, you want something here, you need something here, and let's go get that. Not to be selfish, but to say what is needed. And quite frankly, it is the same anger energy that helps us when we're stuck, get moving, right? Stop being so stuck when we need courage, when we need strength, when we need good power to move something forward or defend someone or defend what's true or right. It's anger energy. We don't call it that, but it is that power that rises up in us that we can wield in really positive, good ways. Okay, so we don't think of it that way, but we should, because it actually helps us say thank you, anger, for that power, for what was needed to push through, to persevere through a crisis that was really hard, where we had to go through some sacrifice, we had to go through some hard times, and anger helps us to say, boom, let's go. We got this. We can do this. We almost get a little angry. We just have to make sure where we're pointing that anger, because the other thing about anger is it's trying to find somebody to blame. It's trying to find a place to express all that anger, right? So we can choose where and with who we're going to express that anger and how we're going to, okay? And it's true with all these emotions that we are in a space where we can't really choose what we feel, but we can choose how we respond to those feelings and where we respond and with whom we respond, okay? So we can ask that good awareness question, who do I want to be in this moment as fear arises or anger or sadness, okay? So again, how can we respond with anger? So again, we want to express, we're looking for somewhere to express this anger. And so this gets a little dicey because we don't want to hurt anyone and we don't want to hurt ourselves, of course. But our body is literally ready to attack. And so we need to find a way to express the power that's running through us without hurting ourselves or others and that kind of thing, because we are in the fight or flight mode when our anger is rising up too. And so as an example, vulnerably as a dad, sometimes I yell at my kids. There it is, surprise. But I don't want to. I don't like to do that. That's not who I want to be. And so what happens is, it kind of starts out fairly innocuous. Okay, Nolan, Evelyn, stop arguing, stop doing what you're doing, whatever. And then they don't do it. Or then they get intense, they get intensified, and then my emotion rises and I start getting angry because there's a boundary somewhere that's broken of, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. And then you shouldn't be reacting the way you are. And then I shouldn't be reacting the way I am. and then it just gets worse and worse. And so I get to a point where my body wants to express anger, the powerful emotion of anger. And so once in a while, when it gets that intense, I will leave the room, go into my room, shut the door, and yell and punch my pillow as hard as I can a whole bunch of times. And quite frankly, it is really helpful because then I turn around, go back out, and enter back into the situation, which has probably gotten a little worse since I left. And I have expressed some of that intensity. My body was ready to do that, and then I did. Now I expressed it, I let it go. And now I can be much more in my critical thinking mind. I can make much better decisions. Who do I want to be? How do we want to do this moving forward? Okay. So I remember years ago reading one of John Eldredge's books called Journey of Desire, where he talks about the grief that he went through losing his closest friend and mentor. And he said one of the things that he incorporated into his grief and his anger was a trash can that he beat with a baseball bat. And I remember reading that, and the good Christian boy in me was like, oh, you can't do that. That's not okay. That's out of control. That's bad. And yet there was something about it that was like, maybe I could do that. maybe I could let out some of that. And so I one of the things I do in coaching is help people find healthy ways to express their anger, because many people are angry. They don't know what to do with it. We know we take it in bad direction, so we just try to shut it down, right? But then it stays there and gets worse and tries to shout all the louder. So there are healthy ways to deal with it. Remember our stormy first draft. Let some of that out by writing down the story of whatever you're angry at, or telling somebody who is a good listener and a safe place to go, and kind of let it out. Yell and swear and do whatever you got to do, because all that is in there ready to go, so that you don't yell and swear at the person that you're angry at or that kind of thing. Go for a drive in your car and yell. I had one client do that, and then the next day I had a session with him and his voice was totally hoarse. He totally lost his voice. And I was like, well, good job. He said it worked. I feel a lot better, but now I couldn't hear what he was saying. But so anyways, we don't always have to, go punch a pillow or something like that, because it's not always that intense. But for some of those intense anger moments, even if you're in an argument with your spouse or whatever that looks like, leave the conversation for a little bit, put a pause. We're going to come back to this, but we're both really intense right now and we're not moving forward at all. And you leave and you're breathing hard and your body's ready to attack. And sometimes that's enough to just calm you down. Oh, right. I am actually safe. I'm not actually in danger. Okay. And then you come back later and you're much more able to engage at a critical thinking level, problem solving level, and that kind of thing. Right. So we say thank you to anger And I'm telling you what, the boundaries thing is going to be really helpful if you can learn to set healthy boundaries. For all of us who are quarantined right now, it's actually, it may be helpful to think of, are there a few things that you're a little frustrated with right now in your quarantining space or with the people that you're quarantining with? And I'm not trying to start anything. It's probably already there because we feel a little bit more stuck, a little bit more claustrophobic than we usually do. And so this may be an opportunity to set a little boundary to say, hey, I've noticed that this is happening. I've noticed that, I don't know, you feel like you're taking me for granted a little bit, or I can't think of all the examples, but there's plenty. And actually expressing that and saying, it's okay, but I want to be on the same team. Let's set some healthy boundaries. Let's work this out together. It goes along with what we talked about last time, which is setting routines in our lives. We can also set those boundaries in really healthy ways. And Sherry and I just did that the other day with how we're taking care of the kids who have a lot more energy and intensity and aren't on their normal schedule. And we had a miscommunication about what does all this look like, and why are you doing this when I thought it was this way? And we were able to communicate about that because we brought it up instead of ignoring it and being passive aggressive, just kind of that throwing out a comment here or there that's unhelpful, right? So that is our anger. Thank you, anger. And let me share this with you again. And then we're going to introduce sadness. And again, sadness is one we don't like to identify with a whole lot. And we know that sadness can be taken in some negative places where we can get stuck there. We can get stuck in grief. We can go into depression. We can get just kind of indecisive and all that kind of stuff. We can feel sad too intensely. So sometimes we want to push sadness away. Sometimes we feel like it's weakness, that vulnerability of crying or hurting or that kind of thing. And so the role that sadness plays is kind of like our therapist. Okay. So it kind of comes along and says, hey, listen, thank you, fear and sadness. Like I said before, thank you, fear and sadness, or fear and anger, for what you're trying to say. But what we really need to do is it's time to let go. And what's happening right now in our culture and the space that we're in is that we're actually grieving the reality like it used to be before the whole coronavirus thing, because it was better and we don't like this. And so we feel like that's the way it was. Why isn't it like that anymore? And that's the way it should be. And I wish it was like that still. And so sadness is trying to help us say, hey, it's time to let go. And so as we broaden the definition of sadness, things like I feel sad when I'm lonely or isolated or apathetic or sometimes even sleepy or remorseful, or sometimes we feel like stupid or that kind of stuff. We get sad and we're hurting that way, right? And so the gift of sadness is actually often transformation. It allows us to navigate hard things that we actually have to change our mind, or we have to lean into something that we don't want to. And it helps us accept what reality is. And we say, okay, this is what's actually going on here. This is what we need to do, instead of staying stuck in what was or what we wish is still, or that kind of thing. And so we say, thank you, sadness, for helping me understand I have to let go at some point. I have to, we're like that kid that, our parents say no, and we fight against it and we throw a fit. And at the end of the day, parents still say no. And we kind of go, fine, we have to do it. So sadness helps us understand that sometimes, that we have to let go of what we wanted to hold on to. So how can we respond to that? How can we express that sadness is to allow vulnerability. Okay, we said last time, we need to realize that we're hurting. And sadness is the best of all the emotions at helping us accept reality and honor pain, because it shows us what is. And it's kind and it helps us do that. But so if we're feeling that, allow the space to feel that. Whatever you're feeling, allow it. allow it to be there, and then interact with it, work with it instead of against it, like we've said. And so sadness is when those tears come up. If you feel some tears coming, let them. We often stop tears because we feel like they're a sign of weakness. We don't want people to see us like that. That's messy. That's awkward. We look funny. That kind of thing. Find a space to do it, because that's keeping something inside that's trying to get out. A healthy release of emotion is tears. It's actually releasing water through our eyes. Think of how crazy that is, that our body does that. It's trying to get out the sadness that's going on there. It's trying to release that. Don't stop it. Let it happen. If you need to take some space by yourself, do that, or just with a person that is helpful to do that, do that. But don't hold it back. Now, I know sometimes we need to put our head down and get through something and be resilient. So it's not like I walk around crying all the time. But the big part of healing in my life has been allowing myself to cry and allowing a lot of emotion to come through that I had kept hidden for a long time. I had shut down for a long time. Okay, so we want to be able to do that. Honor sadness. Thank you, sadness, for helping. Tears aren't the only way. In smaller things, we can just say, wow, that really makes me sad. Just give it space, give it a voice. That really makes me sad because I'm missing out on that. I wish that for so many of you, I wish I could give you a hug right now. And I see your face. It's so good to see your face, and I miss you. I'm actually getting a little emotional right now as I say that, because we're missing that physical connection and the hugs that we get from each other, and those that are stuck in this. And we feel empathy for others that are hurting just like we are. So I guess this is what's happening for me right now. And I want to allow that. And you get to see that on my face, maybe, if you can see. I feel that emotion. So let that be an example. That's what we can do. And it's honoring to us, and it's honoring to other people to say, yeah, I'm in pain. And it is sad. And we can just honor what is in different ways other than crying as well, which is just expressing it and allowing others to do the same. Okay. All right. So now we're finally getting to the one we've all been waiting for, which is joy. And that's the one that I think we all like to be in, or like to stay in if we can. But joy is actually can be taken in negative ways too. When we try to cover up pain with joy, or we use it to say, yeah, but what's happening is this, and trying to make other people feel happy when they don't feel happy, or trying to make ourselves feel happy when that's not where we're at right now, right? Excuse me, the glass is half full, or the silver lining, or that kind of thing. It's not bad. It's just sometimes it's not time for that. And so what we want to do is honor the joy and work with it instead of against it, or use it in too intensely sometimes to cover things up, right? And so their role, I like to call joy our interior designer, right? Because they're happy, they're upbeat, and they're trying to create a space, create a container in your life where you are happy, where you see beauty, where you connect, where you are upbeat, and all those things, right? And so what joy is trying to do is help us find what is good, and what is good right now. Okay, not in the future or not in the past as much as right now, in reality, what is good. And so we want to look for that. We want to allow joy to look for that. We don't shut it down. Even some of us shut down joy because we think it's out of control. Honestly, one of the great gifts of having children that are as young as mine are is that they're so good at expressing emotion. And sometimes I don't want them to express the emotions that they're expressing, but they're so good at it. And they're especially good at expressing unhindered joy, right? They don't hold back. And so once in a while, I want to enter into that joy with them. And if they're dancing, I'm going to dance too, because they don't care who's looking. They don't care if they look silly. They have big smiles on their faces, and we turn the music on and we all just dance. And Sherry does it a little less than the rest of us, but she still does too, which is great. And when the kids are talking about silly things, things that as adults we'd say, oh, that's just, that doesn't even make any sense. I enter into that sometimes and try to have that banter and that back and forth to say, so what do you mean about that, crazy purple elephant that you're imagining right now, Nolan, or, whatever it is, instead of pushing it back and going, yeah, whatever, kid, that's fine. But there's a part of us that inside of us that's silly, and often at this age, if we, as we become adults, the responsibilities and the intensity of life, we start to lose that silliness, the freedom of joy, the freedom of kind of bumbling through something like a toddler, does physically. And we can do that emotionally by allowing space for it. And so there is part of us that obviously needs to stay connected and grounded to the reality of what's going on in this crisis. But there's part of us that needs to find things in this time that makes our hearts come alive, that we really enjoy, that is just fun. Okay. And my kids help me do that so much because they're always ready. Now I have to tell them no quite a bit now that they're at home and I'm at home and I've got to keep working. But I get to enter into that with them. So allow the little kid in you, other little kids that to inspire that joy, right? And so as we broaden the definition of joy, joy are things like excited, sensuous, energetic, cheerful, amused, playful, optimistic, all kinds of things that joy brings along with it. And they're under the heading of the emotion of joy, right? And that's the real gift, is to see the good, see the beauty. And so as we let go and sadness and joy work together, which can be kind of surprising, but it is a process of renewal, right? Which is what a lot of this life is about. Like today, this beautiful day tells me that spring is finally here. And it is the process of renewal from winter into summer, where everything starts to grow back and the birds are out chirping again and it becomes warm again. It's the process of renewal. And what it is that in our emotional life is the process of renewal is from sadness into joy. And this is what God and Jesus are also telling us as well, is that in the cross, it was the pinnacle symbol of renewal, that when we go into death, there will be a resurrection. And so that's why at the end of this healthy emotional flow is almost like this death and resurrection, where we have to finally let go in sadness. And the resurrection is into joy. And joy helps us see what was there all along. Often we think if the circumstance would only change, then I'll see the joy. And often the joy was there all along, but we couldn't see it because we were stuck. We were stuck in wishing or thinking, man, if it was only the way it was, I'm going to hold on to that. I'm going to be angry about it. I'm going to fight to keep what was. And joy says, no, let's enjoy what is here. See the goodness in yourself, in other people, what's all around you, right? And so again, the way we can respond to joy is often just kind of let it lead. And it can surprise you and it can feel vulnerable. And so again, if you got to be by yourself to do it, that's fine. But enjoy what's around you, enjoy the goodness, that kind of thing, right? And so that is the introduction to the healthy emotional flow and the four main emotions, okay? So a few things that I want to talk about just as we look at this. And I will also include a link with the healthy emotional flow worksheet, so you can take a look at that more later as well. But a few things, right? So one of the things, if you notice, it took me watching the whole movie to notice, but in our movie clip at the beginning in Inside Out, every person in their control room has one main emotion, one emotion that leads. They're a little bigger. They're in the center at the control desk, and all the other emotion looks to that emotion to lead, right? So for the dad, it was anger. If you notice, the red guy, he was in charge. For the mom, it was sadness. For the daughter, it was joy. right? And so it's really actually helpful and insightful because every one of us has a lead or go-to emotion that we're much more comfortable with, and then we've kind of, kind of say, hey, will you protect me? Will you do this thing, right? And for me, it's fear. I know that about myself. And for most of us who struggle with anxiety and fear, fear often leads. Because we're fearful, we want fear looking for all the danger. And that's worked for us at certain points to know and try to control that way, right? For others, it's anger. For others, it's sadness. For others, it's joy. So just notice, and that's a good question to ask yourself, and bring to God and ponder, what is my main emotion? Because sometimes what happens is we get stuck in another emotion because we're not willing to go there. We want to stay in our go-to emotion. Right? So sometimes I get stuck in fear because I'm not allowing it to go into anger next, which is to say, what do I do about this fear? What can be done? If there's a boundary that's broken, how do I fix that? How do I move the boundary or seal the boundary? Right? Or sadness. I'm still in fear. I haven't even made it to sadness or joy either. Or we can skip fear, not honor what we're scared of, and go right to anger. Right? And it's not a great idea to ask the person that's fuming mad, what are you scared of? Because they're going to tell you nothing. But it's usually there somewhere. So oftentimes with clients, that's what we'll do. We'll say, I'm sorry you're angry. Now, what fear are you in? What are you scared of? Right? Same with sadness. Right? Same with joy. So if we're stuck, sometimes we can look and say, oh, I really haven't spent much time in whichever emotion that we're unfamiliar with. Right? The other thing that I want to say is emotions are not meant to stay, okay? I'm going to share my screen with you one more time and add this part to the emotionally healthy flow. Okay, and so this is how it works. All right, you see the arrows there, and so what's supposed to happen when we feel an emotion is supposed to come up, tell us what's going on, do whatever it's supposed to do, and then we're supposed to let it go and express it. And that purple dotted line at the bottom is what's called our baseline. All right, and so our baseline, none of these emotions are supposed to be our baseline. None of these emotions are where we're supposed to stay. They help us, but we're not supposed to stay, right? So step one, we feel an emotion that gets triggered. Step two, we become aware of it somehow. And step three, we express it. All right. So 1, 2, 3 of emotions, very simple. It gets triggered. We become aware of it, and then we express it. It's supposed to be expressed. Another way to say expressed is to let out, right? That TNP valve we talked about last time, which is literally letting out steam, letting out some of that emotion. Okay. So it's supposed to come up. We feel the fear and let it go. But the problem is that when we stay fearful or angry or sadness, or even in joy, when we stay there too long, that dotted line starts to rise. The baseline starts to rise, okay? Because what the baseline is supposed to be, how God created us, is it's supposed to be shalom, a beautiful Jewish word that means peace or resting peace. And I like to say it just means I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm safe, right? And so this actually goes back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which talks about all these different levels and layers of, I need these things to be okay. I need to be safe. And it's a very subconscious reaction that happens, but I need to be safe, right? So, but if we're always feeling unsafe, that baseline starts to rise and we always feel it instead of coming back down to a place that says, I'm okay. I'm safe, I'm loved, I'm accepted, I'm heard, I'm valued, okay? And so we got to be careful that when we feel ourselves getting stuck in an emotion where we're always fearful or have too much of that fear data coming in, we got to allow it to go back down to shalom with all the different things that we talked about, right? Same with anger, same with sadness, same with joy. All right, and so we watch that baseline. Sometimes I like to compare the two between a flowing river and a stagnant pond, right? And so we live right across from the Huron River at our house here. And it is a place of flowing life because there's all kinds of trees and plants and animals we have. Sometimes we have sandhill cranes and swans and ducks. I just saw trumpeter swans today, which I love. Most swans are mute. And so when you hear one, that's a trumpeter swan. There's your little factoid for the day. But I get excited about them because they're so rare, and it was just beautiful hearing them go by. And so a flowing river is something that brings life. And so when our emotions are flowing, it brings life. But a stagnant pond obviously doesn't bring life. And even the animals stay away because it's a place that just kind of stays. And so when our emotions are not flowing, we actually get stuck, and it becomes like a poison in us, and it becomes much worse, right? And so as we kind of come to the end of this time, what I want to say to you is that you are safe. You are loved. You are so accepted and invited. You are valued. I hear you and I see you. Okay, and those are words of identity that we need, right? We need that baseline, and we need to continually come back to it, that we are beloved. We are beloved even when we make mistakes, even when we're confused, even when we're stuck in emotion. We are okay. We are accepted. We are valued, right? And when we can be at that baseline and then come up when we're fearful and then express it and then come back down, that's a really healthy way to live, right? When we feel that anger, boundaries broken, come up, feel it. Okay, there it is. I need to set a different boundary. I need to express that anger in healthy ways, and then allow it to come back down. I'm safe, I'm loved, I'm accepted, I'm beloved, right? Same with sadness. That comes up. Tears, hurt. Man, this sucks, this hurts. Accepting the reality that we don't want to accept. And then it expresses, it flows, come back down, and I'm okay. I'm valued, I'm accepted. And of course, joy, even the intensity of joy comes up, and we celebrate, and we have fun, and we have excitement, but we can't push ourselves to stay there all the time. We're not designed to. And so even that, we express it, we have fun, we find the good, and then we come back down to that baseline that says you're okay. You're accepted, you're loved, you're heard, you're valued, you're invited, you are enough just the way you are. Okay, so we thank our emotions for helping us navigate through this life, and we can tell them, enough, it's not time for you right now. I'm safe right now. And then we come back up and we say, now it is time to deal with this or do this next thing or feel this or that kind of thing, right? So you can see how now we're working with our emotions instead of against them. We're not trying to shut them down. We're trying to give them a voice. And then we can set healthy boundaries. Then we can make our next move, whatever that is, in a really healthy space. Okay? So as we end, I am just so grateful that you guys tuned in. Thank you for being here. I'm going to do the next webinar is going to be how to harness the good fear and anger, that combination of our fight or flight. We're going to go deeper into those two emotions specifically. And quite honestly, this is my favorite part of teaching emotion. It's probably the best part as far as the content and the practical ways that we can interact with how our body responds to fear and anger and that kind of thing. So I would be really excited if you showed up and saw that, or at least saw the recording of the video. That's on Tuesday, April 7th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So I will send each of you the video recording of this, as well as the links that I told you about. That'll all be on the same video link if you've already gone there, but I will send it to you again in an email as a follow-up to this time, so you have that recording. Feel free to share that with anyone who you think could benefit as well. And of course, my website, deeperministry.com. Please go there to find out more about what I do and my coaching. Subscribe to the weekly reading. I send out, you get a weekly article that I write or blog that I write in your inbox that encourages us and continues us helping learn how to live free and train in the art of living free. So thank you so much for tuning in. We are almost at exactly an hour, so I'm going to stop talking now. I am going to stay on to look at comments and to see all your beautiful faces, but we are done. So thank you so much.